Family court doesn't reward emotion. In fact, it rewards regulation. Cross-examination is not a personal attack from an attorney. It is their strategy. They are trying to ruffle your feathers. They are trying to get under your skin. They are trying to have you look crazy, to look not credible. You are not on trial as a human being in family court. You are being evaluated as a witness. I want you to be able to bring into that courtroom your presence, being clear and remaining in control of not only what you're saying, but of your story. Hello once again. How are you? It is the 2nd of February of 2026. It is Monday. And I hope that you all are having an amazing start to your week. Today's training, actually, and what we're going to be discussing was inspired by a client session that I had this morning. And, my client shared that, first of all, she's in Ireland, for context, and shared with me that today is St. Bridget's Day. And it's a day that honoring a woman of strength, leadership, and protection of others. And it felt fitting, she said, because, she was meeting with me. And I think it fits what we're going to be discussing. I feel that our discussion will be quite fitting of this theme because so many of you are being asked to stand up in court and do one of the hardest things that there is, and that's tell your truth in an environment that is designed to rattle you. It's designed to trigger you. I want you to pause here. Let these things land. Let's sit with all of that for a second. Family court doesn't reward emotion, as you all know. In fact, it rewards regulation. It rewards calm, well-presented, well-organized. The most powerful thing that you can do in the courtroom and to get yourself to the courtroom is not fear. Coming at it from a place of fear is not allowing yourself to be as present. What do I mean by that? The things that we often fear are fear itself, and sometimes we get stuck in our own thoughts of how scared we are and how much we know that this is, going to change the trajectory of our life, and how we have to give all the details. We have to be able to share all of the different parts because all the parts of our story to us are very important. I want you to be able to bring into that courtroom your presence, being clear and remaining in control of not only what you're saying, but of your story. I want to talk about recognizing our own power. And you all know that I say this word often, and it is definitely a mindset shift. It is the ability to take ourselves out of victim mentality and put ourselves into a mentality of power as well as being in control. So there's some key points that I want to make sure that we discuss, and that is how the court is like this. It's not a perfect place, and court therefore is not about you being perfect or even persuasive. It is about you being credible, consistent, and I want you to write that word down, consistency, as well as you being regulated in your own emotions. The system itself is intimidating, and that's by design, right? Look at law enforcement in this country. A lot of it is intimidating. If people are able to intimidate you, you are easier to then therefore manipulate and control. Cross-examination is not a personal attack from an attorney. I know we all believe that our ex's attorneys are terrible and they're despicable human beings. But there's maybe some truth to some of that. But them putting you on for cross-examination is not a personal attack. It is their strategy. What are they trying to accomplish with this? They are trying to ruffle your feathers. They are trying to get under your skin. They are trying to have you look crazy, right? To look not credible. It is pure strategy, right? If you've ever been in the courtroom waiting for your case to be heard, I'm sure that you have seen cases before yours where, the attorneys were really kind of getting into it with the witnesses, right? And the witness seems flustered. Maybe the witness even had gotten defensive at one point or another, right? So I think it's important that we recognize other cases as they're being presented in family court. And if you have the ability, I invite you to go sit in family court and just watch a few hours, see what's happening so you can get a better sense of your presence and the overall moves that the different players in the family court system are taking, right? What is the role of the attorneys? How are they engaging with other individuals that are not me? And I'm not saying to go and observe opposing counsel, but just to get a general idea of how they always present. Here is a line that I think is really powerful for us when it comes to reframing. You are not on trial as a human being in family court. You are being evaluated as a witness, and those are two very different things. You are being evaluated as mom as well. We're going to talk about how to present evidence and verbiage and how to address the concerns that we have. And I'm going to give you some tips on doing that. If you are watching live in school, I will address questions that you leave in the Q&A. Now, many of us forget that part of being able to present ourselves and look credible and cool, calm, and collected is being able to regulate our nervous system on the stand. You'll see that even when I'm speaking to you, I take breaks. I might take a sip of water. I might pause. I might take a breath, right? Why do I do that? It helps me regulate my nervous system. There's some practical, teachable tools that I can give you to help when you're going and you're presenting your case or if you are testifying. And I work with everyone on these tips, right? Especially in our one-on-one sessions. But the first thing is grounding your feet on the floor. That's not sitting crisscross. That is sitting with your feet into the floor, allowing your weight to be shifted almost and pushing into the floor. Can you feel the floor? Where are your feet? Do you feel your socks? Do you feel your shoes? What does the ground beneath you feel like? And I want you to check in with your body as you do these things. Slow your breathing down. Easier said than done. If you are an individual like myself that has a lot of anxiety or can be triggered by being around their abuser, most of us have that scenario. Medication is something that you can lean on. There's no shame in this. Propranolol actually is something that helped me make it through. That and sertraline, which is like the medicine helped me to be able to do these things that I'm sharing with you. If we slow our breathing down, we can inhale for 4 and exhale for 6 counts. Dropping your shoulders, right? Putting your shoulders behind you, dropping your shoulders, unclenching our jaw. Where do we hold tension and stress primarily in our body? Our shoulders, our face, our jaw, unclenching it, relaxing. If your body is calm, your answers will follow while you're being questioned on the stand, or even if you're presenting your case, providing testimony, but this is largely focused on cross-examination. I want you to pause before answering. This is allowed. It's not the first one to answer the question is the winner. You're allowed to pause. Speak slower than feels natural. I don't always speak at this rate, right? I speak quite quickly with my children, my husband, friends. I want you to slowly speak, right? Slow your speech down. I promise no one is paying attention. If you don't understand a question that's asked to you on the stand, say that. I'm sorry, I did not understand the question. Could you please rephrase? If you didn't hear the question clearly, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Could you please state it again? If you don't know an answer, if you don't remember an answer, say that. I don't recall. I don't know. Pausing in our testimony is not weakness. Pausing is us being in control. I want to give you a modern day example of someone that was very well prepared for providing testimony in a deposition. And that's Jeffrey Epstein. Right? If you've watched any of the documentary or any of the videos, we see that Jeffrey Epstein knows exactly when to pause and he breathes, allows the attorney to get in an objection, and he also has very well rehearsed things that he says. I would like to exercise my 5th Amendment right. I would like to exercise my 6th Amendment right. Right? He did not give these attorneys what they were looking for, right? The prosecutors. There's nothing wrong with you preparing for trial. In fact, you should be practicing. You should be running mock trials. Now in the age of AI, run a mock trial. Watch yourself in the mirror. Even record yourself so that you can feel more comfortable and more confident in your presentation. You should be able to answer the questions without a lot of difficulty. And ask, right? Like you want to ask hard questions questions that could trigger you, questions that could upset you, right? How do we survive cross-examination and not self-sabotage? And this is where people really lean in. What is cross-examination designated to do in the first place, right? Like, let's understand that. It is designed to trigger defensiveness in you. It is designed to rush you. You'll notice how defense attorneys are jumping from one question to the next by design. It's also to get you to over-explain yourself. This sounds familiar, right? Like an abuser, right? This is done by design. And it's also so that you contradict yourself. So things that you previously said, that attorney's been taking notes. They're going to go back and look at what you previously said so that you can show that you can contradict yourself, right? They want to attack your credibility. Judges look at credibility in these cases. Is the witness credible? You are a witness in your case. Knowing what the purpose of cross-examination is and that it's not intentional, you're not intentionally being picked on. I want you to look at some things that we should be doing instead when in the situation of cross-examination, right? And I've said this for over 20 years, preparing multiple individuals for hearings, trials, you name it, in all kinds of cases. You answer only what is asked of you. Make sure that you understand all parts of the question and the full question before beginning an answer. But you're going to answer only what is asked. We don't go off into a tangent and then give a bunch of details and go into the weeds. Stay out of the fucking weeds. You're going to be giving short and factual responses only. No storytelling. This is not for you to have your day in court and to tell all of your truths of everything that has ever happened and expect justice. It doesn't happen. I know it seems very counterintuitive. It's a very flawed system. But from working in the judicial system, in the area of law for over 2 decades, I will tell you, do not expect justice from the justice system. Just don't. Don't go in there with that expectation. They're going to see the truth. I have to say everything for them to believe me, for them to do what is right. Don't correct the tone of the attorney during cross-examination. Don't correct them. There's no correcting. You're only presenting the facts. You're also not going to correct your own tone. You're not going to change your own tone. I want you to speak in a way that is very much this monotonistic style. I want you to speak that way. Only presenting facts in the case. You're not talking about your emotions. You're only presenting facts. As we've previously discussed, that can start out with a date, behavior, something that happened, what occurred, and also what did you do to help problem solve some of these things that might have happened? Are you consistently trying to problem solve? Are you consistently showing up for the child? This is the same skill that I teach in high conflict communication coaching, right? And this is BIF. We're going to be brief in what we are presenting in court. We're going to be brief with our own testimony. We're going to be informative. We're going to be neutral. And that's it. Done. This is not about you presenting every instance of abuse that you ever endured or lived through, because it will not go well for you. I say this as someone who tried that on her own, and it did not go well for me. In fact, I was presented as, the bitter ex-wife that was still hung up on her ex-husband, that was in love with him. I was his lover, apparently, and I had no idea, right? I was this man's lover, and I did not like his new partner, and I was constantly attacking the new partner. And in fact, I was the one that was abusive. I was manipulative, right? So none of those things worked in my favor. When it comes to the cross-examination part of any case, you don't win cross-examination by outsmarting the other attorney. You win by not playing the emotional game at all. They are baiting you into playing an emotional game of tit for tat. Are you going to join, or are you going to remain grounded, calm, cool, and collected and present the facts of your case? There's a lot of common mistakes that I see that hurt credibility in cases. I'm going to kind of give you a rapid fire list of them. Explaining instead of answering. Did you go into a long explanation instead of giving a simple answer? Volunteering extra details. Are you giving more details than is needed to answer the question? It's pretty simple. Miss Bennett, can you please share for us what you did when Dad refused to return the children to you, as you claim? I reached out to Dad via Talking Parents. I asked about an ETA of when I could expect the children at the exchange location. I did not receive a response. I then responded back in another message that I had waited for 15, 20 minutes and I was going to be returning home to please tell the children I said hello and that I hope to see them soon. That was all I did, right? I've given you an example of a question, the first thing that came to my head, and how I went about answering it. Did I get into any kind of emotion? No. Did I get a long-winded answer of he does this all the time, this is something that's constant? No. I answered the question that was very specific with specific details. No reacting to any kind of sarcasm or tone, right? Attorneys are notorious for this. They might be sarcastic. They might, you might feel like they're bullying you. I'm not reacting to any of that. I'm just going to maintain my own composure. Trying to convince someone, the judge, the other attorney, instead of testifying. Stop trying to convince individuals of the truth. Stop worrying about, are they going to believe me? And simply share what needs to be shared. Your job is never to prove that you're right. Your job is to be believable, also credible. So let me look at a question that we have here, right? And it talks about how to present evidence and what the verbiage should we use around addressing concerns for a certain scenario, right? So there's constant spousal verbal assaults and belittling remarks on one's parenting efforts. And this is happening in front of the children. And it's great that we're not coming about a situation with yelling, but calm, false accusations and twisted truth, right? So this is what the individual said. It doesn't usually come with yelling to them, but it comes with this calm, false accusation and a twisted truth of what's actually happening, right? So does your ex attack your parenting in a way that's belittling you? Probably not, right? It's going to be kind of very like this backhanded compliment or these little petty micro attacks. How should one frame this, document it, and show it in a way that the court cares? This is a great question. So I would state and I would document how the other parent is involving the children in adult conflict. The other parent involves the child in adult conflict and the other parent badmouths me in front of the minor children. For example, there was this one occasion on September 10th of 2025. I was at the exchange location picking up the children, and at that time, Dad told me that I was a terrible mom and that my children should feel ashamed of me and be embarrassed because of the way I dress, the way that I speak, and that I am not implementing sufficient amount of punishment for the children. I grabbed the kids, they said goodbye to Dad, I put them in the car, and we drove away. The kids later shared with me that they, didn't like the way that Dad had said those things to me, and I reassured them they didn't have anything to worry about, that I love them, and to allow the adults to handle adult issues. And I moved on with our afternoon. Right? That's how we can talk about these types of answers, these types of scenarios. How can we present this evidence? When we present and we're testifying or presenting our case, our nerves and our anxiety can get the better of us, right? And so it's only natural that at that time our body feels a need to speak more rapidly than usual, right? We're usually communicating faster when we're anxious. Maybe we're forgetting some key details because our brain is like spiraling and we're wanting to make sure that we're going through our list of all the things that we wanted to say. That's why if we kind of go back to the basics of the things that I worked with you about already, right? I shared with you of how to speak slower, so much so that it feels unnatural, not to over-explain yourself, not rushing yourself through any kind of answers or communication. Don't rush yourself even through your own presentation of your case. Well, before you even get to cross-examination, don't rush yourself. Have talking points, have them written out. You do not have to write down word for word what you're going to say, but have some points that you can discuss in court. I started this session here with all of you, and I started the day by saying that it's St. Bridget's Day in Ireland, as a client shared with me earlier. And St. Bridget represents strength without the chaos. That's how I'm kind of tying this all in today. In the United States, it's Groundhog's Day, and it was actually my grandmother's birthday today. She passed away many years ago, about 15, 16 years ago now. St. Bridget is leadership. It represents leadership. We all have St. Bridget energy within all of us. We have resiliency. We have strength. We have leadership qualities. We have power within us without this performance, right? We are naturally powerful. There's a reason why your ex chose you in the first place. Let that power shine through. That is the energy that I want all of you to bring to court. Being grounded, being steady, focusing on the things that we were sharing earlier puts you in a position of being more unshakable, right? What are what is our toolbox that we're creating to prepare for court? Well, okay, Bridget's told me that I can be more grounded, right? I can present things in a way that I'm calm. I should speak more slowly, right? So on and so forth. I know that there's always all of these questions that come up for each of you about how do I present the evidence, right? How do I present a timeline? How do I talk about abuse? It comes every single time with every person I speak to. And I don't want to ever discourage anyone from talking about abusive behavior or sharing abusive behavior. Rather, what I want you to do is think about, how can I describe these behaviors without using the word abuse? How can I talk about what has happened without saying this person is abusive or this person must be narcissistic? Don't say those words in court. Don't say those words in court. Instead, you could say things such as, there's some concerning behavior that has come up from time to time. There's a consistent pattern of behavior that I've observed, which Dad does not respond to the messages that I sent him on the parenting app. And that makes it very difficult for us to therefore co-parent and communicate regarding our child. I'm often left with unanswered questions, with the inability to make decisions. Dad might be ignoring a question that I've presented in order for us to reach a joint decision about the child's extracurricular activities or the school that we want to enroll the child in. So how do I go about this, right? Like, saying those things. Is he abusive? Is he stonewalling you? Yes. Are we going to say that it's stonewalling? No. Dad, using an example from before, there's some concerning behavior that recently occurred. I went to pick up the children at the exchange location at our court-ordered time, and Dad proceeded to attack me and my parenting skills and my parenting ability in front of the minor children, in front of our kids. And instead of engaging further, I simply collected the kids, put them in the car, and we drove off. Did I say the exact thing that needs to be said? Yes. This is the behavior that happened. It's concerning behavior. What was the behavior? I explained it. What actions did I take? The actions that I take are important because it shows that I'm, one, de-escalating the conflict, that I'm not further engaging. It also shows us how I am removing the children from adult conflict. Your children do not need to be involved in the adult conflict at all. I want you all to hold on to this conversation that we're having today. Come back to it time and time again before hearings, before a trial. Heck, you can even use the same tools before meeting with a custody evaluator, before meeting with a gal, presenting the case in the same ways, being that calm, collected individual. What happens in cases where protective parents are trauma dumping, right? They're dumping all of this information onto judges all at once, and they will not let go. I'm going to pull up for you some data, and it's going to be the data. I'm looking at data on like over-explaining things in family court, okay? And how that impacts the outcome of your case. I like to do these things with you kind of like interactively, so we're looking at the same information, right? All right. So what does the research say about trauma and the courtroom? Family court is inherently stressful and can re-traumatize people. We all know that. I have been re-traumatized. I have been re-victimized over and over again in family court and DV court. Okay, there's qualitative research with women engaged in custody proceedings shows family court processes often trigger trauma symptoms, including, but not limited to, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and stress. Physically on my body, one can tell if I am extremely anxious. I get like patchy red all over. It also equates to my nervous. Like when I feel nervous, I will feel really hot, like overheated. Sometimes anxiety attacks had previously been so bad on me, like I would break out in like hives and like a rash on my neck and my upper chest. So litigants enter court already psychologically overwhelmed. When systems minimize or dismiss claims, individuals experience secondary victimization, making traumatic symptoms worse. This is not the place for us to share all of the things and how our ex has been terrible since, 2010. Court professionals often lack trauma-informed training. We know this. Talked about it. You hear me talk about it. Studies of both dependency and family courts report that while some personnel understand trauma in theory, or let's say they've studied psychology, doesn't mean that they're knowledgeable, it just means that that's what they've studied. Many do not routinely screen or respond to trauma in practice, which can overall exacerbate emotional reactions that we might have during hearings and trials. When you feel like the judge is not listening to you, the attorney does not understand what you're saying, I want you to pause there for a second. As trauma survivors, it's important for us to feel heard, to feel seen, to know that we're being heard, because for so long our voices were silenced. And we felt that we could not be heard, that no one believed us. Family court, it's not that they don't believe you, but it's how you're presenting the information. Are you giving them little bits that are easy to digest? Think of, did you ever feed your child when they were like an infant and they started to like work on solid foods, like little Cheerios, right? Or something that was like small, but that would like kind of dissolve in their mouth, right? Bite-sized pieces. I remember giving my kids Cheerios. So I use that example. Think of, you have to feed the court little Cheerios like a baby, little bits at a time. Okay. We're not talking about the abuse, necessarily saying those words. We're not talking necessarily about the trauma. We're talking about the behaviors. We are also not interpreting the behaviors. We're just giving them the Cheerio. We're letting them digest it. And we're moving on to the next Cheerio. Litigation itself is a source of stress for every single survivor that I've worked with. We're all survivors. Litigation stress is recognized as a phenomenon that's associated with negative psychological outcomes for parties involved in legal disputes. Family law rates high on this because of the personal and emotional stakes that we're all involved in. It is easier for me to look at your case from an outsider's perspective and to help you regulate your emotions and say, oh, we really shouldn't say this. I understand what you want to say. It sounds better if we say it this way. I have no emotional involvement in your case. Now, over-explaining and trauma dumping can impact your outcomes in family court. Judges focus on relevance versus emotional depth and emotional information. So judges are trained to make decisions based on legal relevant evidence, credibility, factors tied into the child's best interest, not on the emotional weight of a person's life story. That's why your emotions have no place in family court. When a parent goes into trauma narration or emotional dumping, and I hate to use these words with you all, but I want to save you. And sometimes we need to save ourselves from ourselves. The emotional trauma dumping, sharing the intense personal trauma that you've experienced without any kind of clear legal relevancy, that's going to get you in trouble, right? It's not going to help your cases. What can happen is judges may tune it out completely, limit your testimony, right? You might hear the other attorney objecting to your testimony. They might consider it irrelevant to custody factors. Now, I know that there is no better predictor of future behavior than past behavior. We have a study from Harvard that says that, and this is in regards to abusive individuals, right? But does the family court system understand this? Historically, we haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. But that's why it's important for us to document, right? Especially after we have orders in place, because we can show how this behavior has continued and we can show the pattern of behavior. We don't have to say that someone is abusive for it to be understood that they are. And I've seen judges even like pivot to like a case management perspective rather than being able to make decisions based off of the substance that you've presented. This is not about minimizing the reality of what you've lived through. It's not about minimizing your pain or the abuse. This is about how evidence must be framed in family court. Over emotional testimony can weaken your credibility. It weakened mine at one point in my case. There's limited research overall on trauma dumping per se, right? So we have to look at like general courtroom practice and guidance, which emphasizes that judges need clear, specific evidence that is not some kind of broad emotional narrative. Emotional oversharing risks detracting from the key facts the judge must hear in order to evaluate your case. Makes it harder for the judge to discern what affects the child's best interest and increases opportunities for opposing counsel to argue that the party is unfocused or overwhelmed, unorganized, too emotional, helicopter parent. You see where I'm going? I'm sure you've heard these things before. This actually aligns with common litigation strategy, right? Keeping the testimony within concrete, verifiable events. How do we verify it? Yeah, have you documented it? And behaviors, right? That directly relate to parenting, to co-parenting in the child's best interest, the child's overall well-being. When we have unstructured trauma-related testimony, it can leave a lot of room for misinterpretation. When trauma is not contextualized within relevant legal factors. Examples: how has past behavior endangered the child? How has past behavior negatively impacted co-parenting? It can be misunderstood. So in some systems, repeated traumatic disclosures without any kind of clear link to custody issues or co-parenting have characteristically dismissed a personal grievance rather than provided like this proof of harm, right? So it's being dismissed as, you have a problem with this person. These two adults clearly don't like each other. I'm not seeing how the child could be in harm's way. So we have to be careful with the things that we're sharing, how we're sharing them. Erroneously, sometimes this behavior, right, the trauma-related testimony, is attributed to high conflict behavior rather than a trauma response. When you are presenting all of this information, what does your ex do? They love to play victim. And if we have two people that are sharing stories of trauma and abuse and manipulation and all of this, it sounds like two people playing victim. These judges do not know better. It doesn't mean that courts purposefully are like discounting your suffering, discounting abuse. It's not intentional in many places. There's a lot of corruption. Yes, I know. Before you come at me, there's a lot of corruption. But overall, this reflects the legal system's evidence-based decision that they're looking to follow, right? There's a guideline that the legal system looks at, and it's evidence-based rather than a therapeutic understanding. They don't want to have a therapeutic understanding. They don't need to have a degree in psychology. What trauma dumping really is and why it's so important, right? So the psychological term that I'm using of emotional dumping or trauma dumping refers to us sharing traumatic experiences without regard for the listener's role or the context, right? If you were sharing your story before, this happened to me many times, right? I would share about the abuse that I was enduring in my marriage, what things were happening at my house, with coworkers, with colleagues. If it was not the right person, they would tune me out and they would move on. And what happened with me? I felt dismissed. I felt that I wasn't being heard. I felt that my opinion, my voice did not matter. Was that true? No, I was sharing my stuff with the wrong person. It's not just expressing emotion, guys. It's this boundaryless outpouring that can overwhelm others, and it can strain and negatively impact interactions, right? It can happen with colleagues, friends, coworkers, whatever. It also happens in family court. In family court, judges are not therapists. They're not listening to any kind of therapeutic thing, right? That's not their role, to listen to all the issues that you've ever experienced and decipher what that means. Courtroom dynamics do not reward you venting. In family court, even like justified emotional experience can be sidelined if it isn't tied to evidence and strategically relevant. Trauma-informed practice overall in family court and family law is still not something that's uniform. We do not see this consistently over all areas of family court. There are some judicial efforts, I would say, state to state, to make courts more trauma-informed, like trauma-aware questioning we see, safety planning. We see that in dependency court even. But these are largely uneven across our jurisdictions. And state to state, these things do change. Country to country, they change. Trauma-informed practices overall have the goal to acknowledge the role of trauma, adjust procedures, and prevent re-traumatization of the victim, and help the parties present facts in ways that courts can consider. I am trauma-informed. What do I work with you all on doing? Helping you present the facts in a way that the court will consider and understand. Trying to adjust your presentation to prevent you from being re-traumatized and re-victimized in family court. Even with me doing this, it does not eliminate the need to communicate strategically within legal parameters. How are you communicating with your attorneys? How are you communicating in the courtroom? What are you saying? Over-explaining and trauma dumping can distract from legally relevant issues. What are those? Stability, safety, the capacity of the individuals to parent, as well as co-parent. It will dilute your credibility if emotional material is not connected to evidence the judge can use. You have to have evidence that will go in hand with what you're saying. It can contribute to secondary stress for any litigant, court professionals, and potentially this can lead to your testimony being completely misunderstood. It can lead to a conversation with a gal to be completely misunderstood, misinterpreted. And then we see these reports from gals, reports from custody evaluators that appear to have a large bias against us. Strategically approaching court, I think it's important that we frame our emotional experiences so that they are clearly connected to the child's well-being and risk factors, right? If your ex, the high conflict parent, is consistently driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol with the child in the car, or they're consistently driving after having their license revoked or suspended because of driving under the influence, or even being financially irresponsible, not paying that speeding ticket, that can put the child at risk, right? These are things that we want to look at. What is the evidence that I could bring that could prove that my ex has been driving under the influence? Have they gotten a DWI? Have I gotten a PI on them? Do they have something pending in traffic court showing that their license was revoked? There's public records. Utilize them. Look up the information. Keep your descriptions specific, factual, and supported by evidence, right? Dates, behaviors, patterns. That's what we're looking at. Use trauma-informed legal counsel. You should be interviewing your attorney. If you're using an attorney versus being pro se, you should be interviewing your attorney. We can talk about that next week. How to go about interviewing an attorney in family court and deciding, should you have an attorney or should you be pro se? And using that trauma-informed legal counsel, legal representative to translate the emotional history into legally compelling evidence rather than this venting type of narrative, right? Okay, so I hear what you're saying about the abuse. I hear what you're saying about how a dad did this, how the high conflict parent did that. What is the evidence that we can use that can tie this all together? I want you to remember the most important things from today. And that goes back to how we first started. Presenting ourselves in family court, being grounded, understanding that court is not about being perfect. We're going to have flaws. Have we made a mistake in parenting? Have we made a mistake with co-parenting? Was there one moment where maybe we didn't follow the order exactly as written? Do we recognize that? And then talk about all of the things that we've done since then, right? The behaviors that we are consistently maintaining. It's important that we learn how to regulate our nervous system when going into family court. Slowing our breath down, dropping our shoulders, relaxing our shoulders, right? Everybody do this before going in, right? You might look like a clown in your car in the parking lot, but do this, right? Loosen up your shoulders, work them a little bit. We don't want them high up here. We want them a little bit lower, right? We want to like feel that we're in our body, that we're sitting in our body. Unclenching your jaw, unclenching your fists. If you follow these tips, you're going to do amazing. I believe in all of you, and I know that you're working really hard to simplify your case. And I'm really proud of you for doing just that. It's happening in real time. I see your question. What to respond, this message, and patterns for the other parent that shows unwillingness to look for a new job. He has been losing his job since February 2025. Me, Here's the job post about X role at X company that you are looking for. Do you want me to ask friend to refer this role to you? I would not involve yourself at all. I would not involve yourself at all with the fact that he's not looking for a job and you should not help him try to find one. That is your answer. It is not your job to help your ex find a job or maintain employment or to make sure that he's paying his child support. Not your job. In fact, do not expect a high conflict person to be financially responsible for the children or for you, because they won't. All right, you all. I will see you again next week. Same time, same place. I hope you have an amazing start to your week. Happy Groundhog's Day. I believe we're having 6 more weeks of winter. And happy St. Bridget's Day. I will see you all again very soon. Take care.